Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now doing another factoring question. Okay, A. Dortmund company makes annual credit sales of 1.5 million. Credit terms are 30 days, but its debt administration has been poor and the average collection period has been 45 days, with 0.5% of sales resulting in bad debt, which are written off. A factor would take on the task of debt administration and credit checking at an annual fee of 2.5% of credit sales. The company would save $30,000 a year in administration costs. The payment period would be 30 days. The factor would also provide an advance of 80% of invoiced debt at an interest rate of 14%. 3% over the current base rate. The company can obtain an overdraft facility to finance its accounts receivable at a rate of 2.5% over base rate. Should the factor services be accepted, assume a constant monthly revenue. Ladies and gentlemen, this is uh, you know typical of an ACCA financial management question. So this should cement everything we have covered and also to give us some of those things that makes us differentiate ourselves from boys to men, girls to women. Okay, so let's dive into it. So a key assumption here is that the factor is going to advance. Okay, assumption factor is going to advance 8% immediately. Okay, 80% of the invoiced amount or invoiced debt immediately, with the balance 30 days later. Okay, 30 days later. Okay, so that's the key assumption. All right. So let us then determine. Okay, why I made this assumption is that if you read this paragraph, you will see that what I'm talking makes sense. All right, what I'm referring to makes sense to that assumption. So let us now discuss the current position. All right, that using the commerce debt collection staff and a bank overdraft to finance all debts. Right, so that's the information we are going to use on the current position. Okay, let me just try to erase this other line. Okay, all right. So I think I need a bigger space. All right. So we are told that the credit sales were 1.5 million. Okay, sorry, something like that. Okay, 1.5 million. That's a 5, ladies and gentlemen. Please, this one is a 5. Okay, 1.5 million. We're told that in the question, 1.5 million. Now, average receivables. Average receivables period. The average receivables period is how much? We are told that the average collection period has been 45 days. So it's wiser to just have that information at your fingertips. 45 days. All right. Now, what is the annual cost? What is the annual cost of the current arrangement? All right. So the annual cost annual cost, we know that the receivables are taking on average 45 days, so 45 over 365, right? Multiply by the total sales figure of 1.5 million, all right? And we then have to do the, the costing, or maybe let me just say the finance cost related to overdraft, okay? The overdraft relating to, the current setup. So, information about the overdraft should be found somewhere. Let us read. Effector will check that the command saves, right? The command obtain an yes, this is the overdraft information I'm looking for. All right, excuse me, there's been some disturbance. It's okay. Now, we are told the command can obtain um, an overdraft facility to finance its accounts receivable at the rate of 2.5% over the base rate. So, what was the base rate? What was the base rate? Okay, because some of the students could easily pick the 2.5% and say that was the overdraft interest rate. No, that one, the statement is saying at a rate of 2.5% over base rate. So which means if we know the rate, we have to add 2.5% if we know the overdraft rate. The base rate, rather, it's the base rate. If we know the base rate, then we should add 2.5 to that rate for us to arrive at the overdraft rate. For us to arrive at the overdraft rate, we need to know the base rate and then add the 2.5%. So what was the base rate? Are we in a position to arrive at that figure? Yes, we are. If you again read a little bit furthermore, we can get that figure. So we are seeing also a statement that says the factor would provide an advance of 80% of invoice dates at an interest rate of 14%. That is 3% over the current base rate. So obviously the base rate can be found, isn't it? So the base rate is actually 14% minus 3%, because the 14%, that one is said to be 3% above the current base rate. So obviously the base rate is now how much? The base rate is now 11%. So you must enjoy reading these questions, because if you don't read them properly, you're going to fail. So this means that if the base rate is 11%, we now know that our overdraft rate is now 11% plus 2.5%. Okay, the 2.5 is there. All right, so 11% plus 2.5, this gives us 13.5. So in the exam, you can actually, put the other information in a bracket to say, to indicate to the examiners how you have arrived at the 13.5%. Okay, you just have to say the base rate is 11% plus the 2.5%, so that examiners know where you have obtained the 13.5%. Okay, that said, it means that we then have to say 45 over 365 multiplied by 1.5 million multiplied by 13.5%. We should arrive at, let me use a much darker pen. We arrive at 24,000 30,966. Then we were told that some of the bad debts, about 0.5% will arise. Okay, so 0.5% of 1.5 million will become bad debt, and that's a cost as well. So this will come to 7,500. We are also told that there were administration costs, all right, of how much? Of 30,000 in the current setup. So admin costs, these ones are 30,000. So the total cost of the current receivables regime, the total cost of the current receivables regime should be 24,966 plus 7,500 plus 30,000. Okay, this shall lead us to 62,466. That's the current setup. That's the current position. Okay, now let's move on to the proposed position. Proposed position. We are told in the question that the cost of the factor is, he charges about 2.5%. All right. He has to advance 80% immediately. All right. Then the balance will be settled 30 days later. All right. That's the information we are obtaining there. Okay. Now, for us to be consistent in comparison, we need then to assume that if we are receiving 80% immediately, then the balance, all right, the balance which we expect to receive in 30 days should actually be financed through a bank overdraft. All right, this is to utilize the like and like assumption. All right, because we have been using the overdraft assumption in our current position computations. So we then have to at least assume that the balance we are expecting in 30 days should be financed through an overdraft, and it should be costed as well. So in this case, how much is 80% of the credit sales? So because that will assist us to arrive at the cost of using the factor. All right, so 80% of 1.5 million should be something like 1.2 million. All right, so this automatically means that the overdraft amount should then be the balancing figure, because we are saying that we are our sales were 1.5 million. So the balancing figure there should be financed by overdraft, and this should be 300,000. It's it's an assumption that is very, very valid with regards to the information you have been given, because by the end of the day, examiners are assessing your critical skill. Your analytical skills. So in this case, if you come up with these figures, you're not going to fail, because they are actually reasonable figures. All right, they are very, very reasonable. Okay, now that said, let us then compute the annual cost of the new plan. The annual cost. Let's start with the factors finance. Factors finance. If they give us money, immediately, all right, the 1.2 million. Remember, they are going to give us the 1.2 million. This is how we obtained the 1.2 million. That's 80% of the total credit sales. So they are going to advance us today. If they advance us today, they're going to charge an interest on that money. And they said they will charge 14%. Right? 14% is an interest charge. This is different from their admin fee, okay, or their normal fees. But we are simply saying that if they give you money today, they expect an interest. They are investing now, so there is an interest charge. You are given money today. There is an interest charge attached to them. All right. There's nothing to do with the services, but it's the cost of that finance. It's the cost of the finance. So the factors finance, they're saying we can give you today and expect the balance later in 30 days. So we assume that the investment period of the money given today is 30 days. All right. So we are saying the factors of finance. So it's an investment in over 30 days. So 30 over 365 multiplied by 1.2 million multiplied by the interest charge, which I said is 14%. It's actually there. Okay, that's 14%. All right. I'm running out of battery, but I'm sure I will be able to finish up. So, this should give us something like 13,808. All right. They're giving us money today. All right. But we know that, okay, normally the credit terms are 30 days and so forth. I mean, let us come to the aspect of 30 days, which is actually very valid to my assumption. We are saying it is written, a factor will take on the task of debt administration and credit checking at an annual fee of 2.5% of credit sum. The company would save 30,000 a year in administration costs. The payment period would be 30 days. So actually, if they advance us 80% today, they will settle the balance in 30 days. So in other words, if they give us money today, it's an investment over 30 days. So because they were not forced to pay us today. All right? They were not forced to pay us what? Today. But they can do that. If they do that, then it's an investment they are making and they will be charging interest over 30-day period. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, so if they provide an advance of 80% of invoiced debt, they will charge 14%. All right, so it's written there. They'll make an advance of 80% at an interest rate of 14%. It's very, very, so it's no longer an assumption. It's actually there. So in that case, we have found the cost of the finance. Now, the overdraft cost, because we are saying that the balance of 300, this 300 is going to be financed through an overdraft. So we do the same computation. We are saying that this is an overdraft over 30, over 30 days. So that's 30 over 365. All right. We are saying, since we haven't received the balance today, but we will receive the balance in 30 days, to finance the receivables over that 30-day period, we would need an overdraft. So this overdraft is not for free. We need to cost it. So that's 30 days over 365 days multiplied by 300,000, right? Multiplied by the overdraft rate. This one is not 14%, but it's 13.5%. Remember, we have computed this one again. Sometime earlier on. Yes, here it is, the 13.5%. Okay, and we should get 3329. All right. Then we need to include the cost, the factor services now. Factor services. The factor services. We are told that the factor would charge 2.5%. Right? From the question, we are told that this guy will charge 2.5% there of credit sales. So 2.5 of 1.5 million. 1.5 million. This would amount to 37,500. So if we add, these figures should come to 54,637. So after you do this computation, you then have to make some comparison. You need to compare the proposed position's cost against the current position. So the proposed position has led us to a total cost of $54,637, whereas the current position is costing us $62,466. And you can see that factoring is going to lead us to much lower costs, and it's very, very favorable. Factors have also advantages of being efficient in debt collection. They are skilled. They do that for a living, so they can't be compared with your organization's finance team. All right, these guys, they do that one for a living. They are bounty hunters when it comes to debt collection. All right, now you can as well see that we haven't factored in the proposed position. We haven't factored in the savings that are made from the closure of the administration function, the debt administration function within the company. We did not include those cost savings here. All right, so you can see that using the factor would be way much cheaper, way much cheaper. All right, so it would reduce the figure of 54 further down to maybe somewhere like around 20,000 or so. So factoring is actually favorable in this regard. However, we were talking of an advancement cost, triggered, the finance costs, the factors finance, the cost of the factors finance from an advancement of 80% today. Sometimes the examiner would want you to comment on whether it was necessary or not. You can see that if we have got more information about this company on its liquidity position, we could see that maybe it was worthwhile to wait for 30 days and get that 80% rather than to be given it today. Why? Because if you look at these figures, the factors finance is 14%. It's charged at 14%. As you can see here, it's 14%. Whereas if we could be financed by an overdraft, it's 13.5%. So you could see that no, sometimes it's even better to wait for 30 days than to risk, receiving finances above our overdraft rate. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? So those are the arguments you might put across and so forth. But other than those factors, you could as well see that factoring in this case is very, very favorable. Okay. Somebody might actually say, oh, there is an alternative position of arriving at these conclusions. Okay, let us try the alternative way of arriving at the same conclusions. All right. Let me try to clean up this question so that you guys could see the figures properly. Okay. Yes, because if it is cluttered, you won't be able to see properly what we'll be talking about. So, the alternative way of coming to these conclusions is to utilize or to consider the changes in cost, uh, that using a factor would mean. Okay, so let us consider movements or changes in cost. All right. So we come here and say alternative. The alternative. The alternative. Okay, so I'll start with my dollar sign and with the effect of reduction in collection period, in the receivables collection period. We are moving from on average they were taking 45 days, but we now want to be we will now want the period to be 30 days. So that movement will be 45 minus 30. Okay, 5 minus 30 divided by 365 days. All right. Um, okay, 365 uh, days. Then we then multiply by the total sales. Total credit sales. There were 1.5 million. I'm sure you still remember that. Okay, so we then have to multiply that, right? We need to multiply that such that we come to the finance cost using an overdraft rate, right? Using an overdraft rate. So the cost of receivables should actually be 8322. This is 13.5%. All right. Now, what about the extra interest cost of the factor's finance? Extra interest cost, which is linked to the factor's finance. All right. We know that this amount was for 30 days. 30 days over 365 multiplied by 80% of total cost, total sales. We found this one to be 1.2 million. All right. And the extra cost, ladies and gentlemen, is the cost above the overdraft rate. So the factor was charging 14%, whereas the overdraft rate was 13.5%. So the extra charge is that 0.5%. Right, and this should come to $493. All right. Bear in mind that the first figure there, the 8,322, is positive. Why is it positive? Because this was a reduction. Thus, the effect of the reduction is that if the receivables period has reduced, it means that we have saved on overdraft. Remember, there was a problem. I said the same thing. If receivable period reduces, it has got a tendency of reducing our receivables. It has got also a tendency of reducing the overdraft finance cost. Okay, the receivables finance cost in the form of an overdraft is going to be reduced. All right, we are going to pay less of the overdraft, so it's a favorable movement. Okay, good. Now, cost of factor services. Factor services. This guy is charging us 2.5% on total sales of 1.5 million. So that comes to 37,500. This one is a cost. All right. But with the use of a factor, we are going to save on bad debts. Right? Those bad debts of 0.5% are going to be saved because we are now using a factor. So in this case, it's a savings on bad debts. Savings on bad debts. We know that the bad debts were 0.5% multiplied by the total sales of 1.5 million. 1.5 million. And this gives us 7,500. Then we are told that if we use the factor, then we are going to save on the company's administration costs. So savings on admin costs. This would be 30,000. All right. So let's determine the net benefit or net cost. Net benefit or net cost of using the factor. So you would see that if you punch out these figures respecting their operations, positives and negatives, you arrive at a positive 7,829, and this is a net benefit. So you will see that using a factor will always going to leave you in a positive position. All right, using a factor is going to leave you in a positive position. So the reason why I say that we are going to be in the same position, to arrive at the same position, is that if you come here, I'm sure on the screen you can see that the net position is positive 7,829. Now, if you come here, if you compare the proposed position's net cost of 54,637 and the current position's net cost of 62,466, you see that the difference is a positive 7,829. Okay, let us compute the figures. All right, let us say 62,466 minus 54637. 54637. Obviously, you are going to arrive at 7,829. All right. So the reduction here, this reduction is considered a positive move. It's a reduction in cost. So it's a positive move. Are we together, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you, and I hope you guys are happy. Now, an exam focus point. Points to look out for in questions about factoring are who bears the risk of bad debts and the common administration costs that may be saved by using a factor. All right, so those are the things you need to consider when you are doing factoring questions. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, please continue to feel excited. Be very, 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 very excited The ACCA tutor is waiting to assist you whenever you feel you need some assistance. You can contact me on, let me just write my number there on the screen, +263-774-596-368. Okay, just refer your friends, your relatives, your sons and daughters to the ACCA tutor for a clear, no thrills experience. No frills, something like that. All right, no frills or hassle-free experience in tutoring, so that you will be given a good service. All right, thank you guys. See you next time. Goodbye.